Hello everyone, Doug Burns with the Iowa Guide Service here, bringing you the outdoor report from the hookup. Joining me today is newly crowned Angler of the Year in the Iowa Great Lakes Bass Fishing Club, Jerkbait. Thanks for being on board with me today.
Thanks for having me.
I'm going to run through a quick rundown of what's going on in the lakes here. Been out trolling walleye in northern on East Lake. Pretty decent. Cold front seemed to make it a little better. Our water temperature is still too warm. Whenever we get a little cold snap, drop that water temperature a couple degrees, the fish really start to fire. So don't necessarily look for that pleasant day to go fishing. Look for the nastier day and get out there. Trolling speed is really varied. 1.8 to 2.6, and boy, it's changing day to day. Today they wanted faster. Yesterday they wanted it slower. So play with that. Trolling 4, 5, and 6 shad wraps, flicker minnows, and flicker shads. And again, that has changed day to day. Over on West Okoboji, still finding a lot of panfish, bluegills anywhere from 10 feet to 30 foot. Again, depends on the day. I'm still using red worms, both on jigger spoons and below bobbers. The crappie bite, pretty decent. Trolling ripple shads or small curly tails over the existing weeds. Better if you can find some cabbage than coontail. So it pays to take some time to look for that cabbage weed over the coontail. Spirit Lake, still been fairly tough for me on the walleye. Talked to some friends who caught fish at night, but I don't really have any details on that, so I'm not going to speculate. But we're moving into fall. Things are changing. Weeds are dying. We still have too warm a weather. And we're going to focus today looking forward instead of backwards. So we're going to look at bass fishing specifically and what those bass are going to do from now until ice up. That's why I brought in one of the best in the game around here today. And right now, you just had the heaviest weight on Spirit Lake on the tournament on Saturday, almost 18 pounds, which is a darn good bag because that lake is fishing tough right now. What was the key up there?
You know, up on Spirit, in our practice, we really weren't able to find much that was outside of 10 feet. So we really focused on 10 foot or less, finding some rocks. There's still a lot of weeds out there. There's a lot of slime in those weeds. But if you can find the rocks in the middle of the slime, and there's some different rock piles out there, the rocks are pretty clean. So if you can get a bait down in some of those holes, and some of those rock things are fairly small, some of them pretty large. I mean, we had one that's probably the size of 3 of your Ranger boats, okay? And that's where we caught a number of fish. But if you cast wasn't right in that hole, you're gonna get a bunch of grass or that slime and on there. It's gonna be tough to get it back. They seem to be, they're moving a lot right now. All the fish are moving a lot. I think they're kind of, I know you've caught them out from 17, 19. You've also caught them in 2 feet. But on Spirit, it was really finding some of those shallower rock piles that had weeds around them. Those fish were just hanging in the weeds. They're going to come out and feed and eat your bait. So we were what I was throwing up on Spirit basically was a Ned style bait with kind of a beaver on the back, and
with a beaver, a stand-up head with a beaver on it, not with a Ned rig.
Yep, and then even some of the rocker style heads too, the wobble heads, and just throwing them down there 5/16 to a half. If we had a wind, I was throwing the heavier bait, and if I didn't have a lot of wind, like first thing in the morning, I was throwing that lighter bait, and I didn't get nearly as many weeds on it that way. So but that was on Spirit.
A lot of people may not know what a wobble head is. Explain that. That's a deep, it's not a attached jig head to the hook, right?
It is, correct. It's more of a football style head with a swinging hook on the back of it.
Right.
Okay. And so that head has got just, your almost your football head with that swinging hook. You hook your bait on there, and what it really kind of walks through the rocks very, very well.
Yes.
Minimal snags, all that stuff. Same thing with the Neds too. You can throw those on your spinning rods and to get those down there. But we had some pretty good winds on Saturday, so that wobble head was just better as far as it's a heavier weight. I can get away with a heavier weight and throw it on bait casting gear.
Yeah. What basically, instead of the lead being molded onto the hook, the lead is separate, and then there's a small attachment, and the hook is attached to that, so the hook is able to swing freer. Tommy Biffle kind of made him famous.
Absolutely. Yep.
With his Biffle bug. So can't find those everywhere, but you can find them, and they're kind of a speed varying thing. You can fish them real fast, you can fish them real slow, but we'll stay up on Spirit Lake. As that temperature drops, more of those weeds are going to die. All those small largemouth that have been up under the docks and stuff, where are they going to go?
Well, they're moving to the docks.
They're moving to the docks, but they're going to be tearing docks out.
Right, and our big fish, Tony Ruder had a 5.25 that came out from underneath the dock. Okay, and we caught some underneath docks too. We just found that our average was better, and we could find more fish out on some of those rock piles. So a lot of those fish, the largemouth, as they pull the docks out, they're going to stay up there, and there's some different weed piles and different, they're going to stay in that shallow water.
They want to stay up there.
And I've done enough ice fishing out here where I see my smallmouth and my largemouth in the winter is in really shallow water, because there's still, bluegills, bait fish that are up underneath that in the shallow. So I think they move up there, and I think they stay there for most of the winter. So
my favorite time of year for big smallmouth is this late fall period up on Spirit Lake, when the fish get on those, what I'd call intermediate rocks, 8 to 10, 11 feet. And as you know, I'm a jerkbait guy. These baits are phenomenal fall baits, but we got to get the water temperature down. I usually don't start throwing them until bare minimum of 55 degrees. And even better when it gets down into 50, low 50s and all the way down to 40 degrees. The key is finding your cadence for the day, right?
Finding the cadence for the day. And then if you go in shallow, there's deep divers that I like in the summertime. But right now, with those fish, at least what I found, a lot of them are shallower. I'm throwing that your standard jerkbait with the shallower bill. It keeps it above some of the weeds. And again, if you can find those openings, I did catch about a 23-inch walleye on a jerkbait on Saturday. That was kind of fun.
They're right up there in the weeds too.
Absolutely.
They're just have a tendency to bury themselves in the weeds more and get after those perch, and it's harder to get a hold of them. And I think the guys that are catching fish at night, those fish come up out of the weeds and they're more accessible after dark. And they're probably throwing jerk baits or some type of swim bait and working it over the weeds. I haven't been up there doing it yet, but the other thing, again, that I'll throw in the fall, after I've searched fast and furious with a jerk bait, then I can go to a Ned rig and kind of work a little slower and draw a few more fish out of there. And some days your bigger fish come on that Ned rig, some days your bigger fish come on the jerk baits.
And that's real key. And even what we saw on Saturday too is when we caught one, we caught multiples there. So there's this one ridge of rocks that probably runs for 100 yards. Well, there was one spot on that ridge and they were there. And we were able to come back to it and hit it again and keep catching fish. So if you find one, spend some time there and mix up your baits like Doug says.
So we move over to Okoboji. Your second day you were there. In the fall, I know you kind of like to sneak over to East Okoboji and do pretty well over there.
And I spent my day on East. We started on West, but I spent most of my day on East, and we had to work hard. I mean, it was overcast. So with it being overcast, it didn't push those bass as tight underneath the hoists and underneath the dock walkways. We do a lot of, I take a half-ounce jig, and I tip them with a chigger craw on the back of it, a 4-inch chigger craw. And the reason I throw this half-ounce jig is because it's got enough weight that as that bait falls, it makes the tails on that chigger craw really fluctuate. You've got some stain over on each, so they're feeling it as much as they're seeing it over there. And most of the time, that bait goes down, you might get 1 or 2 hops, but then after that, you're in weeds. So it's reel it in, make another pitch, reel it in, make another pitch, and get it under those hoists, get it under the walkways was really key for us. It was tougher for us today. Chris Miller Oak Hills guy had a great day. He had 19.49 pounds, and he was within about a half a pound of catching me, so
Right.
it was close. So
Now, I was out this morning, and those dock guys and hoist guys are busy as heck. As those docks come out, those fish stay there too?
well, see, and I think the two, as you watch the docks come out, those fish are going to move, and we saw that the other day on Sunday too. Is they're going to move to where the hoist are still there. Okay, so if you see you see a hoist that's still got the canopy on it, still got a boat in it. I mean, get around there, and if you can't, if you can't skip a jig, throw a Senko around there, throw something around. If there's some wind, throw a spinnerbait next to it. But they're going to do that, and then once all the docks are gone, they're still going to stay shallow. Okay, and then maybe around some of the points and maybe around there. But I still believe those fish, both the largemouth and the smallmouth, are going to stay shallow throughout the remaining what we got left in the fall and into the winter.
I kind of switch mostly to smallmouth as the fall goes. But the largemouth, you're going to keep being able to catch those.
I think so. You know, and their metabolism will slow down as our water temp goes down, and that's where some of the jerk baits, some things that are a little bit slower, the Senko bait will continue to be good. Probably not going to hit the spinner bait in 42-degree water. You know, as readily as they would hit a jerk bait or hit something that can sit in front of them for a while.
Over on West, I'm still catching some fish out in 20 feet, and I'm catching some fish in 10 feet. I believe finding the greenest weeds is the key right now.
I think that's key. I also think a lot of these fish are moving shallow. So some of the little Millers gets real good in the fall. Little Emerson can get real good around some of those weeds. There's a lot of fish that don't spend the summer underneath these docks. But now to feed, there's a lot of fish that have moved up to some of those docks. Throw a shaky head. Throw it on a spinning rod. Throw a shaky head out next to it. Just let it, so throw your Senko. Ryan loves throwing a Senko up there. Some of those types of things too. If you can't skip a jig underneath there, put a spinning. Stay back because it's still clear on West. So if you can stay back and make a cast, a lot of those fish will be sitting right out in front of the platforms. And as they come out, look for the shade.
Now, for those folks that don't have a boat, the fall has always been great access from the bridges. Now this year we don't have as much current, but they should still be able to catch some fish under those bridges and around those bridges, right?
There will still be some wind generated current around some of those bridges, and I absolutely think you can do some of that too. So the current is absolutely better, and we haven't had current running through the lake since
Last
June or
August.
July. Yeah, since last summer. So,
Right, but there's still some fish for you. For those of you looking for some shore bass fishing opportunities, I would focus on those bridges in between the lakes. On West Okoboji, those of you that like to get out after dark, that night bite trolling, some of your best big walleye opportunities is coming up. The closer we get to ice out, the better that night bite goes. Troll big plugs, number 11, number 13, Rapalas. Nice, slow, and steady. Don't get too carried away with your speed. So, Jerry, great information for everybody going ahead. We have an ice fishing expo coming up. Not sure on the day of it yet, but we'll be getting more information on you out there. Getting more tackle in every day. Somebody needs to come in and buy my Ranger.
One other thing too, if you're interested, the Iowa Great Lakes Bass Club, you can find us out on Facebook. We've got about 30 members. It's a great group of guys, very good competition. If you're a boater or if you're a non-boater, if you don't have a boat, come as a non-boater. We'll pair you up with somebody for the day. We'll have a meeting in January and set our tournament schedule for next year. But if you find us on Facebook, you can get a hold of Tanner Hanaloo is our president, Bruce Lang is our vice president. Both work up at Berkeley, great young guys. They run a great organization, and love to have you join us.
For those people that want to learn more about bass fishing, coming on as a co-angler is a great way to go, even if you own a boat. When I first started on the National Walleye Trails, I did a year as a co-angler to fish with the best. I should have done too. So that's a good thing. If you don't have a boat, sign up as a co-angler, but maybe even if you do, and you can do both, right?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
You can fish some as an angler, some as a co-angler. If you Want to mix it up a little bit that way.
And we have a couple father-son teams that always fish together, and we have some other guys that have come as a non-boater that say, get me in the draw, and then right before the tournament we'll draw, okay, well, you're with Jerry Pate today, or you're with Mark Mormon, and then they go out and have a good day.
There you go. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you out on the water. And we didn't cover pheasant hunting, but that's coming up too, and it looks like it's going to be a banner year there. So we got everything you need for hunting here. Lots of stuff for fishing. Stop into the hookup, and we'll get you fixed up with whatever you need. Thanks, everybody. Doug
Thank
Burns
you.
with the Iowa Guide Service saying adios from the hookup.